I stepped out of the taxi and onto the cracked sidewalk in front of my own house. My name is Gordon Bell. I'm 45 years old, and I've spent the last 3 years working as a chef overseas, pouring my heart into kitchens from Paris to Madrid. I thought coming home would feel like slipping back into a favorite jacket. I was wrong. The first thing I saw was the balloons. Bright, shiny balloons tied to the front porch railing, fluttering in the warm May breeze. A huge, glittery banner read, "Happy birthday, Gordon." My heart skipped. My birthday. But no one had said a word about a party. I took a shaky breath and pulled out my phone. That's when I saw the text from Lauren, my wife. For short sentences that twisted in my gut like a knife. "Don't come home. The kids don't want you here. Stay away." I blinked at the screen, hoping it was a bad joke. But when I looked up, the rest of the picture came into focus. A brand new car was parked in my driveway, a sleek, red sports car that didn't belong to me. Standing next to it was a man I knew all too well. Tyler, the gym instructor. He was laughing, one arm slung around Lauren's waist, like he belonged there. I stood frozen, my suitcase heavy in my hand. My mind was spinning, but I forced myself to keep breathing. This was my house, my family, my life. But in that moment, it felt like I was peering into someone else's world. I caught sight of Kevin and Madison through the window. Kevin was holding a cake, his eyes wide with excitement, while Madison darted around with a party horn. My chest tightened. My kids. My whole reason for coming home. But according to Lauren, they didn't want me there. I could feel the heat creeping up my neck, the old anger simmering just below the surface. Part of me wanted to storm up the porch steps, throw the door open, and demand answers. But another part of me, the part that had spent years in bustling kitchens and cutthroat dining rooms, knew better. You don't walk into a fight without knowing what you're up against. I turned and walked back to the taxi, my footsteps feeling heavy and hollow. As I slid into the back seat, I caught one last glimpse of them. Tyler's easy grin, Lauren's bright smile, the happy bubble that didn't have room for me. My throat tightened, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Back to the airport?" the driver asked, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "No," I said quietly. "Just drive." The cab pulled away, and I stared out the window at the houses rolling by, each one a piece of someone else's life. I thought about the years I had spent perfecting dishes in foreign kitchens, pushing myself to be the best so I could come home and make my family proud. I thought about the nights I had called home, listening to Lauren's tired voice telling me she missed me, that the kids missed me. Lies, apparently. The hotel I found was a cheap one, with a flickering neon sign that read "Rooms available" in red letters. I checked in under a fake name. Habit, maybe, or maybe it just felt safer to be someone else for a while. Inside, the room was small and smelled faintly of bleach. I set my bag down and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the faded carpet. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't look at it. I didn't need to see any more of Lauren's words tonight. I thought about Kevin and Madison and how I used to make them pancakes shaped like dinosaurs when they were little. I thought about the way Kevin used to hug me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. And I thought about how none of that seemed to matter now. I took a deep breath and let it out slow. I wasn't going to barge back into that house and beg for a place at the table. I wasn't going to let them see me broken. I had learned a long time ago that the first step in any battle is to gather the facts. I pulled out my phone and found the number I was looking for. A friend from my old life, Paul, a lawyer who'd turned in his briefcase for a camera, now working as a private investigator. I pressed the call button and waited. "Gordon," Paul said when he picked up. His voice was warm, familiar. "It's been a long time." "It has," I said, my voice calm. "But I need a favor. I need to know what's been going on while I've been gone." There was a pause, then a low whistle. "You got it," Paul said. "I'll dig into it." "Thanks," I said. I hung up and set the phone down beside me. I sat there in the quiet for a long time, feeling the weight of everything I had lost and everything I still needed to find. Lauren might have told me to stay away, but I wasn't going to disappear. This was my family, my home. And if they thought they could just erase me, they were about to find out how wrong they were. The next morning, I woke up to the steady hum of cars on the highway outside my motel window. I felt like I'd aged a decade overnight. I got dressed and headed downstairs, grabbing a cup of burnt coffee from the lobby before ducking out into the crisp morning air. I found a cheap diner a few blocks down and settled into a booth by the window. The smell of frying bacon and strong coffee filled the air, but I couldn't taste any of it. My mind was too busy. I flipped through my phone, rereading Lauren's message over and over. "Don't come home. The kids don't want you here." I didn't believe that. I couldn't. Paul called around 10. I answered on the first ring. Talk to me, I said. He didn't waste time. It's bad, Gordon, he said, his voice low. I've got copies of loan applications in your name. Your wife took out 3 different lines of credit while you were gone. She's been using your income, your credit, everything. I felt my stomach drop. How much are we talking? Over 60 grand, Paul said. And that's not counting the car. That red sports car parked in your driveway? It's leased in your name. Payments coming straight out of the account you set up for your restaurant investments. I closed my eyes for a second. I felt like my pulse was pounding in my ears. She used my name, I said quietly. She did, Paul confirmed. And that's not all. She's been seeing this gym instructor, Tyler, for over a year. He's been living at your house full-time since January. I've got photos of them at his gym, at your place, even out at that little cafe on 45th Street. They're not exactly keeping it quiet. I let out a breath. My knuckles went white around the coffee cup. What about the kids? I asked. That's the worst part, Paul said. I talked to someone at their school. Your wife's been telling them you're unstable, that you're off chasing women overseas, blowing money, not coming home because you don't care. She's got them convinced you're the problem. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Madison and Kevin. My kids. My everything. And she was poisoning them against me. I leaned back, staring out the diner window at the cars passing by. My reflection in the glass looked older, harder. I want everything, I said finally. Every receipt, every video. I want to know where my money's going. I want to know who's been around my kids. I'll get it, Paul said. I've already started surveillance on the house and her workplace. She's careful at work. She's got a good cover story there. But she's sloppy everywhere else. Good, I said. I'm setting up shop here for a while. I'm not going to let her keep playing house with my money. Paul's voice softened. You sure you're okay, Gordon? I paused. Was I okay? I wasn't sure. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her win. I'm fine, I said. Just keep me posted. I hung up and pushed my coffee away, staring out the window. For a long time, I just sat there, going over everything Paul had told me. My wife, who I thought was waiting for me to come home. My kids, who I thought still looked up to me. It all felt like a bad dream. But if Lauren thought she could rewrite my story, she was about to find out I wasn't going to be the quiet, absent father she wanted me to be. I went back to the motel and set up my laptop at the small desk by the window. I started digging into every account we had, bank statements, investment portfolios, credit cards. Every number told the same story. Lauren and Tyler had been living it up on my money. I found the charges for the sports car, monthly payments that made my chest tighten. There were dinners at fancy restaurants I'd never even heard of, weekends at resorts I'd never been to, all paid for by the man she'd told to stay away. I started a spreadsheet. Every transaction, every dollar. It felt cold, clinical, but it was the only way I knew how to cope. Line by line, I tracked every cent she'd stolen. By the time the sun was setting, I had 3 full pages of notes and a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. I called Paul again. I'm not going to let them see me coming, I said. I want cameras on the house. I want to know every time he steps through my front door. I'll handle it, he said. I'll also keep an eye on her office. You're not the only one she's been scamming, Gordon. I'm hearing whispers about funny charges on her company credit cards, too. I smiled grimly. Good. Let's get everything. When I hung up, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. My kids didn't want me, she'd said. I didn't believe that. Not really. But even if it was true, it didn't matter. I wasn't going to let her rewrite the past. I wasn't going to let her keep the future. I went to bed that night with a plan taking shape in my mind. The same discipline I had used in the kitchen, the endless hours, the attention to detail, was the same discipline I would use now. I was going to find out everything, and then I was going to make sure Lauren and Tyler paid for every lie. This wasn't a fight I had chosen, but it was one I was going to win. The next morning, I woke up early. It felt like the years I'd spent in kitchens, that rush of adrenaline just before service started. My hands were steady, my mind sharp. I had spent the night going over every detail, every dollar they'd stolen from me. Now it was time to start fighting back. I set up my war room in the dingy hotel room, maps of the neighborhood, list of names, screenshots of credit card transactions. I didn't have much, but I had enough. And I had allies. First, I called an old friend of mine, a health inspector named Rick. We'd met years ago when I was still building my reputation as a chef. He owed me a favor. Rick, I said, my voice calm and steady. There's a cafe inside a gym in town. Rumor is they're cutting corners. You might want to take a look. He didn't ask any questions. Send me the address, he said. I'll handle it. Next, I called the licensing board. Tyler wasn't just a gym instructor. He ran nutrition seminars, all paid for in cash. I had seen the flyers around town, bold promises, no real credentials. I left an anonymous tip, just a short voicemail, check his certifications. He's been playing fast and loose for a long time. I hung up and smiled. But I wasn't done. I turned my attention to Lauren's office. She worked in marketing, handling big accounts for a regional firm. I knew the company's name. I had seen it on mail that had come to the house, back when the house was still mine. I left another anonymous voicemail with their HR department. There have been charges on her company card that don't match her travel logs, I said simply. Check her last 2 months of statements. It felt good, each call a small cut to their perfect little world. I wasn't going to let them keep playing house on my money, not without feeling the weight of it. After that, I moved on to the credit agencies. I set up fraud alerts on every account that had my name on it. Every loan, every line of credit she'd touch was now flagged. She wouldn't be able to open another dollar of credit without it hitting my phone. I pictured her face when the next payment bounced, and for the first time in days, I almost laughed. When the work was done, I sat back and watched the sun start to set over the city. My phone buzzed with updates from Paul. Photos of Tyler and Lauren laughing at a cafe, arms wrapped around each other like they had nothing to hide. Another shot of them at the kids' soccer game, sitting in my lawn chairs. My chairs. My life. I kept the photos, but I didn't look at them too long. I didn't want to lose myself in the anger. I needed to stay focused. This was just the first phase. Like prepping a dinner service, clean, precise, quiet. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to let the facts speak for themselves. I went out for a walk, needing to clear my head. The summer evening air was warm, and the sounds of the city washed over me, horns honking, music drifting from an open window, kids laughing in the distance. It was comforting in a way. Even if my own life had been turned upside down, the rest of the world was still spinning. When I got back to the hotel, I set up a small camera in the window that faced the street. Another pair of eyes. Another way to watch. I knew Lauren and Tyler thought they had me beat. They didn't even know I was in town. But that was going to change. I was going to make sure of it. As I sat back and watched the grainy footage on my laptop, I thought about the years I had spent in those kitchens, how I'd learned that the smallest details could make or break a dish. It was the same here. Every loan, every lie, every secret, every detail mattered. And when it was all done, when I had every scrap of proof and every dirty secret in black and white, I was going to serve it up on a silver platter. I wasn't coming for revenge. I was coming for the truth. And when it all came out, Lauren and Tyler were going to learn that they had never been dealing with a broken man. They were dealing with a chef who knew exactly how to handle heat. It was a Wednesday afternoon when I met them, the other women Tyler had scammed. Paul had set it up in a small coffee shop on the edge of town. The real estate agent, Andrea, was the first to show. She was dressed in a sharp blazer, her eyes wary but determined. He told me he was in love with me, she said, her voice steady but bitter. Said he needed help getting his nutrition business off the ground. I took out a loan to cover his equipment, $15,000. He vanished 2 weeks later. I nodded, listening carefully, taking notes. And he never paid you back? I asked. No, she said flatly. Not a dime. The accountant, Laura, was next. She was younger, probably in her late 20s, with tired eyes and a nervous fidget to her hands. He said he wanted to settle down, she said. He told me he'd never felt this way about anyone. I co-signed on a car loan for him. He said he needed reliable transportation to keep his job at the gym. He left me with the payments and blocked my number. The three of us sat there, quiet for a moment. I could see it in their faces, the same shock I'd felt that first night when I saw the balloons on my porch and realized everything I thought was mine was already gone. I'm sorry, I said finally. I know how it feels. He's been living in my house, sleeping in my bed. I'm going to make sure he doesn't get away with it. Laura looked at me, her eyes flickering with something that almost looked like relief. You have evidence? I pulled out my phone and showed them the pictures Paul had sent me. Tyler with Lauren, the charges in my name, the messages she'd sent me. Laura's mouth tightened into a thin line. Andrea let out a low whistle. That's a lot, she said. We could take this to the police. We will, I said. But first, I want him to see us together. I want him to know he can't keep doing this. He's built his whole life on people like us not talking to each other. We stayed there for hours, piecing it together. The same sweet lines. The same promises. Tyler had been running the same game for years, moving from woman to woman, always finding someone to pick up the bill. He played us all, Andrea said bitterly. But he's not going to keep doing it. No, I agreed. We're going to end this. The next day, I met Paul in the parking lot of Lauren's office. You sure about this? He asked, handing me a small flash drive. Everything's on here. Financial records, the cafe footage, even the fake certifications he's using. I nodded, my jaw tight. I'm sure. This is how we break his spell. That night, I watched Lauren and Tyler from the camera I had set up outside the house. They were laughing, drinking wine on the porch. Tyler's car was in my driveway like it had always been his. But now, I had a different kind of power. Not fists, not threats, facts. The truth, laid bare. And I wasn't the only one anymore. Andrea and Laura were ready to speak up. They had nothing left to lose. I called Lauren the next morning. My voice was calm, almost gentle. We need to talk, I said. Gordon, I told you. Not about us, I interrupted. About Tyler. There was a pause, then a flicker of fear in her voice. What about him? He's done this before, I said quietly. You're not special. You're just the latest mark. Liar, she hissed. You're trying to poison me against him. No, I said, and my voice went cold. I'm trying to save you from losing everything. Because when this goes public, when the real estate agent and the accountant testify, you're going to be part of the story. You think the kids won't hear about it? You think your job won't find out? Silence. I could almost hear her breathing on the other end of the line. What do you want? She whispered. The truth, I said simply. And I'm going to make sure it comes out. I hung up before she could answer. My hands were shaking a little, but it wasn't fear. It was the certainty that I had finally pulled the rug out from under them. As I packed up the evidence, I thought about the kids. About how they'd been lied to, told their father didn't care. I thought about how Lauren had built a world of comfort around Tyler, and how she thought it would last. But it wouldn't, because I wasn't going to let it. I was done being quiet. I was done being erased. I was going to make sure that the next time Tyler tried to sweet-talk his way into someone's life, there would be a record, a warning, a line in the sand that said, not here, not anymore. And when the truth finally came crashing down, I'd be there to watch every piece of that fake life he'd built come tumbling down. A week later, I walked into the courthouse downtown. My lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Angela, was waiting for me just outside the courtroom doors. She was the kind of person who could turn a single raised eyebrow into a threat. You ready for this? She asked. I nodded. More than ready. Lauren's lawyer had filed for emergency custody. The claim? That I was unstable after years abroad and posed a danger to the kids. It was exactly the kind of story she'd been feeding everyone else. The devoted mother protecting her children from the reckless father who had abandoned them. As I sat in that courtroom, I felt the anger simmering in my gut. But I kept my face calm, my hands folded in my lap. Angela leaned over and whispered, Don't take the bait. Let them dig their own hole. The judge, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a reputation for sniffing out liars, took her seat. Lauren was there, sitting with her lawyer, her face carefully blank. Tyler wasn't anywhere in sight, of course. He never showed up when things got serious. Lauren's lawyer went first. He painted a picture of me as a man who'd abandoned his family for Europe, a man who'd come back to cause chaos. I listened to every word. My jaw clenched, but I didn't flinch. Let them say it all. Let them get comfortable. Then it was Angela's turn. She stood up, her voice cool and precise. Your Honor, she said, we're requesting an immediate financial audit of the family accounts, a full psychological evaluation for both parents, and polygraph tests to establish the truth of these claims. Lauren's lawyer tried to object, but the judge held up a hand. Let her finish. Angela continued. We have evidence that Mrs. Bell has been taking out loans in my client's name. We have documentation of fraudulent charges tied to Mr. Bell's earnings and assets. We also have evidence that her current partner has a history of manipulating vulnerable women, including 2 separate fraud complaints filed in other states. The judge looked at Lauren, her eyes narrowing. Is this true? She asked. Lauren's lawyer fumbled for words. Your Honor, this is irrelevant. No, the judge said sharply. It's highly relevant. I'll review the documents myself. Angela handed over the folder I had spent weeks compiling with Paul's help. Every loan, every charge, every piece of the puzzle laid out in black and white. Lauren's face went pale. She didn't look at me once. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up and took a deep breath. Your Honor, I said quietly, I didn't come here to play games. I came here because I love my kids, and because I'm not going to let them be told lies about who I am. The judge watched me for a moment, then nodded slowly. I see that, she said. Mr. Bell, thank you. The emergency custody motion was dismissed within 15 minutes. Lauren's lawyer tried to protest, but it was useless. The judge ordered a full investigation, financial records, child welfare checks, the works. Lauren would be under scrutiny now, not me. As I walked out of that courtroom, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time since I came home, it felt like the ground was shifting back under my feet. Angela clapped me on the shoulder. You did good, she said. Thank you, I said. My voice was steady, even though my hands were still shaking a little. Now it's her turn to feel what it's like to lose control. I stepped outside and took a deep breath of the cool air. My phone buzzed with a message from Paul. Got more footage from the house. He's still there every day, acting like he owns the place. I typed back, good. Keep it coming. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Lauren thought she could turn the courts against me, that she could spin a story and make it true. But she didn't realize who she was dealing with. I had spent my whole life in kitchens, where the truth was in the taste, not the talk. Now, the truth was in the evidence, and I had enough to turn her lies to dust. This wasn't just about getting my kids back. It was about showing them that their father wasn't a ghost, that I was still here, still fighting. And I wasn't going to stop until every lie had been dragged into the light. A couple weeks after the courtroom victory, I called Lauren and told her I wanted to see the kids. She didn't say much, just that she'd think about it. I could hear the cold edge in her voice, but I didn't let it get to me. I knew she couldn't keep them from me forever. A few days later, I texted Kevin directly. He was only 12, but he'd always been smart and curious. I told him I'd be at the park near his school on Saturday, around noon, if he wanted to see me. He didn't answer right away. But Saturday came, and I was there early, waiting on a bench under the big oak tree by the playground. I watched families push their kids on swings, toddlers chasing each other across the grass. It felt like a different world, one where people didn't have to fight for the right to see their own children. Then I saw them, Kevin and Madison, walking slowly down the path. Madison's face was cautious, but Kevin's eyes lit up when he saw me. My chest tightened. For a second, I was scared he'd turn around and walk away. But he didn't. He ran to me and threw his arms around my waist. Dad, he said, his voice muffled against my coat. I missed you. I held him tight, trying to keep my voice steady. I missed you too, buddy. Madison hung back for a minute, her arms crossed. She was only 8, but she looked older somehow, like she'd been carrying things she didn't understand. Mom said you were busy, she said quietly. I knelt down so I was eye level with her. I was working, I said. But I never stopped thinking about you. I never stopped loving you. She hesitated, then took a small step closer. Mom said you were mad at us, she said. I swallowed hard. I was never mad at you, I said. I was hurt because I didn't get to see you. That's not the same thing. She frowned, trying to make sense of it. Then Kevin piped up. Mom says you're not safe, he said, looking up at me with worried eyes. That you're different now. I sighed and took a breath. I'm not different, I said. I'm still your dad. I'm still the one who made you those chocolate chip pancakes with the smiley faces. I'm still the one who taught you how to throw a baseball and who read you stories at bedtime. None of that has changed. They were quiet for a moment. Madison shuffled her feet, and Kevin looked down at the ground. I let the silence stretch. Sometimes you have to let the truth sink in before you can speak it out loud. Finally, Madison looked up and said, I missed your pancakes. I smiled. I can make them for you again, I said. Anytime you want. We sat on the bench for a long time, talking about school and soccer and the little things that had nothing to do with lawyers or betrayal. Madison told me she liked art class. Kevin told me about a science project he was excited about. Every word felt like a thread, pulling us back together. As the sun started to dip behind the trees, I told them it was time to go. Madison reached for my hand, her small fingers wrapping around mine. Kevin looked up at me and said, Are you going to be here next Saturday too? I nodded. I'll be here every Saturday, I said. And any other day you want to see me. When Lauren came to pick them up, she gave me a look that was part anger, part disbelief. But I didn't let it rattle me. I just stood there, my head high, as my kids hugged me one last time before they got in the car. She drove away without saying a word, but I knew she saw it, the way Kevin and Madison clung to me, the way their eyes shone when they talked to me. She saw it, and she couldn't deny it. That night, I got a call from Paul. People are talking, he said. Teachers, neighbors, they're seeing you with the kids. They're seeing you're not the problem. Good, I said. My voice was calm, but inside, I felt a spark of hope I hadn't felt in months. Because this wasn't just about winning in court or proving a point. It was about showing my kids who I really was, no matter what lies they'd been told. It was about reminding them that no matter how far I'd gone, I'd always come back for them. I went to sleep that night with a quiet peace in my chest. I knew there was still a long way to go. But for the first time, I felt like I was on the right path. Like I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was fighting for them. And I was never going to stop. A few weeks later, the final confrontation came, right in my own front yard. It started when Paul called me late one night. Gordon, he said, I've got something for you. Meet me tomorrow. It's time. The next morning, I drove back to the house I once called home. The place looked the same from the outside, but I knew better. I parked down the street and waited, camera trained on the porch. I'd rigged up a small surveillance system with Paul's help, tiny cameras hidden in the bushes and a motion detector at the front gate. It didn't take long. Around noon, Tyler pulled up in his fancy car. He got out, sunglasses on, looking like he owned the world. A minute later, Lauren came out, her face pale and tight. I could see she was trying to stay calm, but her hands were trembling. Then Andrea and Laura showed up, Andrea in her power suit, Laura in jeans and a jacket, her face set in grim determination. They had both agreed to come, to finally confront Tyler in person. I watched from my car, heart pounding. Lauren looked at them like she'd seen ghosts. What are you doing here? She asked, her voice flat. Andrea didn't waste time. We know what he's been doing, she said, her voice sharp. We know about the loans. The lies. Laura stepped forward, her jaw clenched. You think you're the only one, she said to Lauren. He said the same things to us that he said to you. Promised us the world. Took our money and left us with nothing. Tyler's face twisted, but he tried to play it off. You're all crazy, he said, his voice low. They're lying, Lauren. You know they're lying. But Lauren's face told a different story. She looked from Andrea to Laura to Tyler, her eyes wide with something like fear. Is it true? She asked. Her voice cracked. Tyler, tell me it's not true. He scoffed, rolling his eyes. Baby, come on. You know how jealous women get. They're just trying to mess with us. Andrea didn't flinch. I've got the bank statements, she said coldly. I've got the emails. You're done, Tyler. Laura's voice was shaking, but she didn't back down. I thought I was special, she said. I thought you cared about me. But you used me, just like you used her. Tyler's mask slipped then. He sneered at them, his voice dripping with contempt. You're all just weak. You fell for it because you wanted to believe it. Lauren's face crumpled. I could see it even from the car. The moment she realized the life she thought she had was a lie. I pressed the button on my phone, and the cameras recorded every second. I was done hoping for a quiet resolution. This was the final act. I wanted everything documented, every word, every accusation, every desperate lie. Tyler turned to Lauren, his voice low and urgent. You're not going to believe them, are you? You're mine. We've got the kids. We've got a life together. Lauren just shook her head. I don't even know who you are, she whispered. Andrea's voice cut through the silence. And the police will know too, she said. I've already filed a report. I'm not letting you ruin anyone else's life. Tyler's eyes darted from face to face like he was searching for an escape. But there wasn't one. Not this time. I watched as Lauren stepped back, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. Tyler tried to grab her hand, but she pulled away. Don't touch me, she said. The final moment was quiet. Tyler just stood there, his shoulders slumped, the slick confidence gone. He looked small, pathetic, like a con man who finally realized the game was over. I sent the recordings to federal investigators the next day. The fraud, the identity theft, the way he'd used my name and my life to prop up his little empire of lies, it was all there, in black and white. Lauren's lawyer reached out to me later that week. She knows the case is lost, he said. She's looking at a plea deal. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I just sat there in my car, watching the footage one last time. Watching the moment the mask fell away and the truth finally came out. I knew there would still be court dates and interviews. There would still be days when I'd have to look my kids in the eye and remind them that their dad was still the man who'd tuck them in at night, no matter what. But as I sat there, the sun setting behind me and the final pieces of their perfect little world falling apart, I felt something like peace. Because I knew this was just the beginning, and I was ready for whatever came next. The day the federal agents knocked on my door, I felt a strange calm. I opened it to find two men in suits, badges clipped to their belts. Gordon Bell, the taller one, asked. "That's me?" I said, my voice steady. He nodded. "We're with the Bureau. We have a few questions about Tyler and the financial documents you provided." I let them in, guiding them to the small table I'd been using as a desk in my hotel room. They laid out their papers, a neat stack of warrants and statements that told me this wasn't just a courtesy call. Tyler had been charged with conspiracy and wire fraud. The other women, Andrea and Laura, had given their statements, just like I had. There was no doubt about it anymore. He was going down. Lauren was facing charges too. Identity theft, perjury, the loan she took out in my name, the lies she'd told to keep the kids away from me. It all added up to a mountain of evidence. The agents told me she was already talking to a lawyer, trying to cut a deal. I didn't feel satisfaction exactly. Just a cold, quiet certainty that this was the only way it could have ended. The children's custody hearing came next. Lauren's lawyer tried to paint her as a woman who had made mistakes, but who still deserved a chance. But the judge wasn't buying it. She ordered a full transfer of custody to me, with Lauren allowed only supervised visits once she served her sentence. I'll never forget the look on Lauren's face in that courtroom. She tried to keep her head high, but her shoulders were hunched, her eyes flicking back and forth like she was searching for an escape that didn't exist. The day the judge signed the final custody order, she broke down. In the hallway outside the courtroom, she stopped me, tears streaming down her face. "Gordon," she said, her voice shaking. "I was wrong. About everything. I'm sorry." I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in years. She wasn't the woman I married. She was someone else now, someone who'd lost herself chasing a fantasy she couldn't afford. I took a breath and nodded. "I know," I said. "I hope you figure out who you want to be next." She opened her mouth to say more, but I turned and walked away before she could. There was nothing left to say. After that, it was quiet. The kids moved in with me full-time. Kevin was nervous at first. He'd been told so many lies, and I could see the doubt in his eyes. Madison clung to me like she thought I might disappear again. But I was there every day, helping them with homework, cooking them dinner, tucking them in at night. One night, a few weeks after the final hearing, I sat with them in the living room of my new apartment. Kevin was showing me a soccer trick he'd learned. Madison was drawing a picture of us together. I watched them, and I realized that no matter what had happened, they were still my kids. And they always would be. I got a call from one of the federal agents the next day. "Tyler's being sentenced next month," he said. "Lauren's already entered a plea deal. She's getting time, but it's not as bad as it could have been. She was manipulated too, in some ways." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Good," I said. "I don't want revenge. I just want them to stop hurting people." "Understood," he said. "We'll keep you updated." I hung up and sat there for a long time, the phone still in my hand. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about making sure the kids knew the truth. About making sure they'd never have to doubt who I was or how much I loved them. The next morning, as I walked Madison to school, she slipped her small hand into mine. "Dad," she said, her voice soft, "you're not leaving again, are you?" I stopped and knelt down to look her in the eye. "No," I said. "I'm not going anywhere." She smiled then, a real smile, bright and full of hope. And in that moment, I knew that no matter how much had been taken from me, I had everything I needed right there. It's been a few months since the final hearing. The dust has finally settled, and I've been trying to rebuild what's left of my life. I found a cozy apartment near Kevin and Madison's school, a place that smells like fresh paint and possibility. It's not much, but it's ours. Most mornings, I'm up early making pancakes in the tiny kitchen, the smell of coffee brewing in the background. Madison sits at the little table, feet swinging as she colors while Kevin does his homework. I never thought I'd find peace in something so simple, but here it is, quiet, steady, real. I'm still working, of course. I picked up a job at a new restaurant that just opened downtown. Nothing fancy, but it's good work. Honest work. I'm back in the kitchen, chopping vegetables and fine-tuning recipes, just like I always loved. And when I come home at night, the kids are here, waiting for me. Last week, Kevin had his first soccer game of the season. I stood on the sidelines, cheering until my throat hurt, Madison at my side clapping along. After the game, Kevin ran over, all sweat and smiles, and he hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. "I'm glad you're here, Dad," he said. I hugged him back, my throat tight. "Me too, buddy," I said. "Me too." Madison's been taking piano lessons, and every night she wants to show me what she's learned. Sometimes it's just a jumble of notes, but I don't care. I sit beside her and listen, and when she looks up at me with that shy little smile, I know it's all been worth it. A couple weeks ago, my lawyer called. "The divorce is finalized," she said. "It's all behind you now." I thanked her and hung up, just sitting there for a long time with my phone in my hand. No more courtrooms. No more fights. Just a clean break, and the chance to finally move forward. I still think about everything that happened. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, half expecting to see Lauren's face or hear Tyler's laughter echoing in the hall. But those moments pass, and I remind myself that they can't touch me anymore. Not here. Not in this home I've built for my kids and me. Some nights, when the kids are asleep, I stand by the window and watch the city lights flicker. I think about how easy it would have been to give up, to let their lies define me. But then I remember Madison's laughter, the way Kevin's eyes light up when he scores a goal, and I know I made the right choice. I fought for them. And I'll keep fighting, every day. Family, I've learned, isn't just blood or promises. It's loyalty. It's the small, everyday things, the way Kevin talks to me about school, the way Madison curls up beside me on the couch while I read. It's the way their laughter fills the apartment, warm and bright. One evening, as I was cleaning up dinner, my phone buzzed with a message from Paul. "You did it, Gordon," he wrote. "They're safe. And you're free." I smiled and set the phone down, wiping my hands on a dish towel. Free. It still felt new, but it felt good. When I tucked the kids in that night, Madison whispered, "I love you, Daddy." I kissed her forehead and said, "I love you too, more than anything." And as I turned out the light, I knew that no matter what the future holds, I'm home, right where I'm meant to be.